Hello, and thank you for joining me. I am Elder Small, and I'd like to first of all wish you a happy new year. This is 2026, and as the year gets started, it is my prayer that this year will be everything that you want it to be for you, your family, and your communities. I'd like to begin this session this year with a reflection on the African diaspora. The African diaspora is a global community of people of African descent. These communities include the people of North and South America, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Cuba, Trinidad, Tobago, the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Canada, Spain, Ecuador, Germany, and the Middle East, um, Asia in general. I believe that those of us who make up the African world, well, the African diaspora, need to embrace a worldview that fosters solidarity, unity, and a shared sense of worth among ourselves and our friends, our neighbors, and communities. This worldview should also encourage mutually beneficial business relationships. The African diaspora is one of the largest communities in the world. Most of the people in diaspora communities are aware that their communities were shaped by ancient migrations out of Africa and both the Arab and transatlantic slave trade. Consequently, there are ancestral bonds intrinsic to the African diaspora that cannot be broken. These bonds exist irrespective of citizenship and nationality. Most of us share the belief that Africa is the motherland, the country of our origin. We left Africa and built communities worldwide that share common political, economic, cultural, social, academic, and religious experiences. After centuries of denial, exploitation, and marginalization, social media has become a catalyst and bridge empowering us to reunite and interact with one another after centuries of estrangement. The African slave trade, which took up the mantle of the Arab slave trade, was facilitated by the rule divide and conquer. Likewise, the Berlin Conference was driven by the rule divide and conquer. This rule was used as a weapon of mass destruction, destroying families and communities during the process of colonizing Africa. Slavery and colonization are therefore two sides of the same coin. Together, the institutions of slavery and colonization are the root causes of social, political, educational, and spiritual depravity in our communities worldwide. Colonizers indoctrinated Africans to see African culture as uncivilized, reprehensible, and unworthy of preservation, while elevating European culture as a or as civilized, desirable, and worthy of imitation. We saw the rule of divide and conquer play out on plantations. The kitchen staff, then known as house, the N word, were given preferential treatment over the cotton field workers who were referred to as field, the N word. Light skinned people were treated more humanely and favored over dark skinned people. Today, Africans and African descendants from diaspora communities voluntarily migrate to the United States. However, the sad reality is that there are stark divisions between continental Africans, African descendants in the diaspora, and African Americans. The divide and conquer rule recast itself as brother against brother, sister against sister, and parents against children. We have forgotten what it means to be one people, interconnected and living in unity with one another. At times, African immigrants feel superior to African Americans, and at other times, the reverse is true. The seeds sown in our ancestors by colonial powers and slavers have sprouted and bore fruit, bitter fruit that the soul cannot digest because it is artificial and man made. Before the Arab and European enslavers came along, African societies were known to have a system of enslavement. The difference being African enslavement, or the difference between African enslavement and European and Arab enslavement, was that Africans did not dehumanize their slaves the way that Arabs and Europeans did. With African slavery, the slaves could marry into the family and become part of the tribal community. In addition to dehumanization and brutalization, slavers used deception, coercion, and objects that Africans did not have, such as guns and mirrors, trinkets, to entice Africans to turn on one another. Let me use the example of the genocide that took place in Burundi and Rwanda, more specifically Rwanda. The bloody Hutu and Tutsi conflict was a direct result of the Berlin Conference. Rwanda and Burundi were given to Germany, but the League of Nations later compelled Germany to concede these two colonies to Belgium after the First World War of 1918. The Belgians emphasized a single physical characteristics of the Tutsi, their nasal bridges, and used this to convince them that they were superior to their Hutu brothers and sisters. School teachers used rulers to measure students' nasal bridges. Those with smaller noses and straight nasal bridges were classified as the preferred group. According to Europeans, the straighter your nasal passage, the more desirable and attractive you were. Uh, this is how the class division first begun. The Houthis were not considered as beautiful as the Tutsi because their facial features were different and, in European eyes, less attractive. Other factors made the Belgians favor the Tutsi over the Hutu. The Tutsi were cattle ranchers and perceived to have greater wealth and higher social status than the Hutus. The Hutus engaged in farming, which the Belgians considered the work of the lower classes. Then Catholic priests came along and told the Tutsi that the Hutus were going to attack them out of envy. They brainwashed the Tutsi into believing that the Hutus were envious of them because of their better looks and beauty. The Hutus, on the other hand, were the majority and felt mistreated by the Tutsi. We saw, or what we saw during the Rwandan genocide that occurred from April 7th to July 19th of 1994. This was over a 100-day period. What we saw was the Hutus murdering an estimated 800,000 Tutsi, as well as moderate Hutus and Twa who opposed them. The genocide was ignited on April 6th of 1994 when a plane carrying Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana and the Burundian president was shot down over Kigali. The Hutu extremists used the event as a pretext to launch their planned extermination campaign. However, this This was an explosion of deep rooted anger that had been festering for decades. And on May 27, 2021, French President Emmanuel Macron, in a visit to Rwanda, said that France recognized its responsibility in the 1994 genocide, asking for forgiveness for his country's role, but giving no official apology. The rule of divide and conquer is not to be taken lightly, as during my lifetime we have been categorized and divided by generations. The baby boomers, born 1946 to 1964, post World War II population boom, often associated with economic expansion and social change. Generation X, born 1965 to 1980, known for independence, adaptability, and growing up during major economic and cultural shifts. The millennials, Generation Y, born 1981 to 1996, came of age around the turn of the millennium, shaped by the internet, 9/11, and rapid technological growth. Generation Z, GZen, the I generation, born 1997 to 2012, first generation to grow up with smartphones and social media from an early age. Then Alpha generation or Generation Alpha, born 2013 to 2025, children of millennials, growing up with AI, voice assistants, and fully digital environments. What I perceive, or I perceive this, I perceive this to be a form of subliminal mind control. Beneath the surface, it subtly infuses excuse me. Beneath the surface, it subtly infuses division into our social lives. Our current sense of reality is shaped not only by physical enslavement, but also by mental enslavement. Dr. Arikana expounds on this in chapter 11 of her book, Africa 101, The Wake Up Call. And if you don't have this book, this is a brilliant piece of work. Um, I suggest that everybody, whoever you are in the diaspora, um, try to get a copy of that book. In chapter 11, entitled "Shackles of the Mind," and I quote: "Believe it or not, the greatest challenge facing continental and diaspora Africans is not economic crisis or racial oppression, terrible as these issues are. There's a much bigger problem that is keeping us from moving forward as a race. It is the shackles of the mind that are holding us back as black people, or that are holding us back as people. The disease is a direct outcome of slavery and colonization. Our self esteem and self worth are in dire need of restoration. This is a result of centuries of systematic racism, subjugation, abuse, and disrespect." End quote. This is my way of saying that the rule divide and conquer is a lie. It is unnatural and goes against the cosmological laws of harmony, balance, and order. The human mind is the anchor that holds everything together. It is a replica of the cosmic mind or divine mind. There is no divide between the human mind and the divine mind. Oneness and unity are the essence of creation, and creation is a emanation of divine consciousness. Our Creator never separated herself or himself from what she created. What we seem to perceive with our senses is, in reality, only different aspects of divine energy, meaning that life is a manifestation of energy, energy that differentiates itself in various forms, yet emanates from the same divine energy, that is, divine consciousness. If we open our eyes to and see ourselves for who we really are, we would see multiple reflections or aspects of ourselves. We would see the heart, mind, the soul, the spirit, which are all composed of the same energy as our bodies, just less dense, more subtle, but they are all interconnected. We are all interconnected divine beings. We exist among millions of life forms, which are all manifestations of the source of creation. Thus, everything we perceive with our senses has a divine origin, emanating from one source in unity. That is, oneness and unity that cannot be separated or destroyed. Our minds are replicas of the divine mind and therefore consist of pure intelligence. Therefore, our goal should be to embrace intelligence, oneness, unity, compassion, and empathy, as these are the gateways to reality and the true essence of life. And so I'm going to stop there, and in doing so, I'm going to grant that, pray that you may experience the greatest good and live a life embracing supreme intelligence. Dua, Hotep, Ashe.